The rest of the tour we were in hotels and dressing rooms and airports. Well, Chicago really resonated with me because I lived in the north of England for a long time after I left Wales, and there were so many similarities between Chicago and the attitude here and Manchester and Leeds, where we had the punk rock thing.
Sure.
So when I came here, I just sort of moved here and didn't know what I was going to do. And I had a 15-year ride in the van with the Recons, and it was over. And then so many people here just kept asking me to do things. It was kind of wonderful. I remember the day I arrived, Greg Cott and Mark Carroll took me out for pizza to welcome me to Chicago. It was kind of wonderful.
We got to fatten you up.
Yeah, and I don't know, people just kept coming up to me and said, "Are we going to start a record label? Would you write a country and western song?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm more into acid house, me, but I'll have a go," you know. So that was Bloodshot. And then we were tired of touring, but I like playing music, so we just started doing country covers in the bars, in the taverns, and that's what we would go in and we would play purely for beer. We refused money. We just played for beer. But I was
another great musician, businessman.
Yeah, but formative moment. We played the Cubby Bear in '87, and some guy said, "Do you want to go down to Sundowners Ranch?" On the R&R Ranch it was called at the time, down by the Greyhound bus station. It's a real honky-tonk, and there's a real country and western band. They play both types of music, country and western. So we went down there, and then we'd been to Alcala's on Chicago Avenue that day, and we were all dressed up we bought cowboy hats, boots, belts, buckles, wingtips. We had everything. So we walked in, and the Sundowners were on stage. There were 3 old guys who played 5 nights a week for like 8 hours. And they just saw us and they were like, wow, they're really interested in us. I couldn't work out why they were so interested. Looks like we got a band here. You guys are a band? And who are you, the steel guitar player? No, we don't have a steel guitar player. Do you want to get up? And they wanted to get off the stage and have us play so they could go and have a drink. So they got us up, and it was absolutely appalling. It was not anything like the scene from the Blues Brothers with the bottles and stuff. But we got up and we were terrible, and I was really ashamed. But everyone was so nice to us and said, "You got to come back." Actually, Kurt Delaney, the bass player, went home that night and he said, told his wife Joan, he said, "You won't believe what blew in tonight. Some punk rock band from England came in. Did you get them up to play?" "Oh yeah." "What were they like?" "Not very good." She said, "But they're willing to learn." And that's what I did. I went away and I learned some Johnny Cash songs, some George Jones songs. I met up with Dean from Wreck. We started doing the Waker Brothers because we just liked those honky-tonk songs they made in an unpretentious kind of working class socialist sort of way. I thought those songs really, did the job for me. So we started singing those songs in bars.
That's wonderfully organic, the way that happened. Sometimes the Sundowners were joined by the legendary anchorman, Joel Daly. Anybody ever see Joel in the Sundowners? Me too.
He tried to steal their legacy.
Huh?
He tried to steal their legacy.
Yeah, I know he did.
I think he offered him $1 for the names.
When you read Mark's book, it must have intrigued you a lot, John. Did it make you at all wistful? Did you say to yourself, I wish I'd been here? Dylan showed up at the University of Chicago and was called by...
I'm always pretty wistful.
Yeah.
No, I just like the thrust of the story from the folk thing. I learned a lot about the folk things. I didn't know so much about that, but I'd always had this feeling that, you go, because of that experience with the Sundowners, it's like, why, when we were like traveling around the States looking for sort of authentic honky-tonk experiences, why would it be in Chicago by the Greyhound bus station when we'd been to Nashville and there was nothing going on in Nashville? Been to the Grand Old Opry built, the new building out by the shopping mall, and it was just like, this isn't what we're looking for, and there it was. That was it.
One of the reasons I think for the lack of recognition is the city. There were no great country stars here, as I understand from the book.
In the early days.
Yeah.
Gene Autry.
Indeed, but I still think that the city, its lack of promotion for what they did not consider a fine art. Yes, we have the world's greatest symphony. Yes, we have the world's greatest visual art museum. that's something that it didn't take advantage of it the way places like Memphis or Nashville did, correct?
Well, Chicago's reputation in Europe is that, oh yeah, the blues, you live in Chicago, you like the blues, and it is a blues town, and it's because of those migrations, but there's no blues museum, yeah? And there's nothing honoring the country legacy whatsoever, and it's kind of completely foolish in my mind.
No, it's true. I mean, the city has always failed to, and it goes back to, cities really, because cities fund the arts, but they fund nonprofit arts. They fund which tend to be the fine arts, art museums, symphony orchestras, ballet companies. That's what gets taxpayer money, and so they completely understand that, and that's to them, to cities, to make a global city, you have all those institutions. But rock and roll, country music, blues music, those come from bars. And especially in Chicago, they never transitioned to a place like the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville, so the music stayed in bars. John still plays in bars.
Well, you can see that during the pandemic. Where did the money go? The money that they had to form the Chicago Independent Venue League to fight and lobby to get support, or all these venues would have just gone out of business and no one would have cared. And these small independent venues are what really bring people to the city and where things actually germinate and come through. It's like a place like the Hideout, but there was no sort of funding for that.
Yeah, I mean, you had to see these places. It's almost a different way of looking at bars. They're drinking establishments, but they're also certain places, like the places we talked about, the Earl of Old Town, the Hideout, the Gate of Horn. They are incubators. So we love talking about incubators in this tech-obsessed world we live in, but bars are incubators for creativity and for songwriters and for music. The Gate of Horn, the Old Town School of Folk Music would not exist today, and it still is an incredibly important organization at a national level. It never would have happened because the three founders met at the Gate of Horn. One was a musician, another was just somebody who loved the music, and the third was a singer in a different phase of his life, and they just met there, and they had a great idea, and they formed it. That story of sort of organic creation happens in places like that. And the story of the country music is like that collaboration, because musicians would go watch other musicians. And I think that cities just don't really get that as much, or at least Chicago doesn't get it as much as other cities have.
Since you brought